Corbyn loves terrorism. Former IRA member and Conservative MP Maria Gatlin. Sorry, I forgot. We're not meant to mention that IRA members sit in Parliament with a blue ribbon. Apparently it messes with the whole vibe of the smear. Secret documents reveal that Maggie Thatcher, Tony Blair and other Conservative government officials held secret meetings with the IRA in Parliament as early as 1972 and as late as 1999. Again, ignore that. I've just been informed Corbyn met them in the 80s, which is of course worse than meeting them in the 70s. I guess condemning all sides for any violence they commit, while supporting the notion that Ireland can self-determine, considering they were colonised and had their religion, culture and folklore destroyed. It really is genuine support for terrorism. Corbyn also once called Hamas and Hezbollah our friends. This obviously isn't inclusive language intended to encourage talks to proceed. No, this was blatant terror-loving in Parliament. Of course, all of our major parties having offshoots directly in support and aid of a country embroiled in its own apartheid and regularly referring to them as our friends and the ultimate voice of Judaism around the world isn't terror-loving because they're not brown enough to be terrorists. Of course, the House of Saud has white man money, so they don't count. We're buddies. The ongoing pressure on Palestine from Israel and the US, likewise for Iran, is no excuse to fight back. No excuse to encourage peace talks. When your oppressor whips you, don't fight back. Don't unite and try to change your destiny, for we are the controllers of it, and anyone who opposes our exact requirements is a terrorist lover or themselves a dictator. Come on, catch up. Last week it turned out Corbyn received money from ex-KGB agents to attend secret dinner parties without his security. His party has also received huge donations from Russia this election. This won't surprise you, as only this month we found out that the Labour Party are sitting on a report into Russian funding until after the election. Sorry, wait. Okay, it turns out that that's Boris Johnson, the Conservative Party, and Boris literally parties with Russian spies. Why won't he go tramps with Jez then? That doesn't seem fair. He likes all the other spies. If none of this puts the nail in the coffin and confirms Corbyn as a terrorist lover, then this will. The bastard went onto a foreign state broadcaster. What kind of fucked up country has a state broadcaster and encouraged peace? Fucking terrorist. Corbyn will wreck the economy. What economy? The IFS, along with countless others, have purposefully used flawed techniques during their analysis of Labour's manifesto and decided to ignore the benefits of their policies, merely treating the economy like one big one-off transaction. Therefore, every other independent and world-renowned economist is wrong, and Corbyn will make our economy the European equivalent of Venezuela. We'll make sure to ignore the 164 economists who signed a letter to the Financial Times this week backing Labour's manifesto. Don't you worry. Labour fucked up the world's economy. This is according to our current Chancellor, Sajid Javid, who of course played an actual role in the global financial crash, implementing austerity to pay for it, and now sits in charge of our economy. I might add that every time he's been on telly, he has lied about this. Now we're on to the gotcha moment. Corbyn reckons if he raises corporation tax to levels lower than Thatcher, that there'll be any rich people in Britain. You can't trust any politician. Is that what you've got? That you can't trust other people, so you won't trust this guy? His track record, his unwavering beliefs, the trouble he's got in fighting for said beliefs, the fact this is over nearly a 40-year period and he's not been bought out, should say enough when we're comparing this to actual real-life serial liars that aren't even pretending to have our interests at heart, people fired from all of their jobs for making stories up, people whose entire ethos has changed during this election. Just imagine anything Boris did, got the bombardment of scrutiny that Corbyn gets for itching his nose. Just imagine the Get Brexit Done tagline, which has been disproved countless times. It's a literal lie. If that received even a fifth of the courage and scrutiny, I don't think I'd be making this video. He's not got what it takes to lead or be a leader on the world stage. What are the parameters? A genuine want for peace? He's on his own. An actual costed programme? Again, on his own. A dislike of using personal insults? Shockingly, for politics, one of a few. Statesmanship? Do you not remember before he was leader and no one had a bad word to say about his demeanour or personality? He's one of a few there as well. If we were playing Guess Who, we'd have been down to just Corbyn within the first two questions. Arrogance is mythically aligned with leadership in politics, but I'd be more inclined to attribute it to dictatorships. What we need is confidence in belief, and that's what we have in Corbyn. We need someone that's a social example, not a socialite, swanning around at secret parties, wooing donors. We need someone with grace and good intention, with honest humour, not punch-down wit. Someone with substance, not eloquence. And someone who brings a mandate, not his privilege, to a debate. But Venezuela! Go read on Latin America and the US influence on their politics and economic strength, and please do it before you use real people's demise as some sort of score against public investment. It's not only a bit of a lie, it's just weird. The US punishes small countries for taking their own mineral and natural wealth under public control. They must be under control of a US corporation, or at least one tightly related to the Western economy. This includes financial or trade sanctions, US-backed military coups, huge capital invested into propaganda and into any dissident political groups against the non-Western leaders and their usual working class indigenous support. That's what really happens. Have some respect for what the West did to Latin America and what it still does before you start blaming the idea of them publicly owning the systems it pays to upkeep for it. It's so misinformed. But he's a racist and he hates Jews. So apparently, going to a funeral honouring the dead from different sides of a war, different nations and different attacks altogether means you only went to honour the worst possible person we found out that was buried near there. It doesn't matter that Tory peer Lord Sheikh was there. It doesn't matter that Tunisia was the victim to these attacks. It only matters that someone killed there may have been connected to terrorism. It doesn't even matter that the papers lied about it. That bit doesn't matter to you. But it's not as bad as that time Corbyn was the first to accept the IHRA definition, even when the author said it wasn't fit for purpose. What a racist. Yes, whilst the BBC and all polled on Labour around the IHRA issue, they often forgot to mention they were the first political party to accept it. Then of course we have the 40-year political career fighting racism, getting arrested, getting in trouble fighting for people's human rights, organising the April 1977 defence of Jewish-populated Wood Green from a neo-Nazi march, signing a motion condemning the rise of anti-Semitism in November 90, signing a motion condemning David Irving for being a Holocaust denier in the year 2000, praising the British Schindler Bill Barazzetti for his WW2 Kinder Transport, in 2002 signing a motion to praise football clubs for commemorating Holocaust Day, being a primary sponsor on a motion condemning anti-Semitism in early 2002, Jeremy leading a clean-up on Finsbury Park Synagogue after an anti-Semitic attack, and also condemning separate attacks on the synagogue in 2002, officially condemning attacks on 2 Istanbul synagogues, signing a motion commemorating International Holocaust Day, condemning news that anti-Semitic hate crimes had risen for yet another year, condemning the French government's move to ban the Jewish kippah in French schools, signing another motion praising Simon Wiesenthal for bringing Nazi perpetrators of the Holocaust to justice, co-sponsoring a bill expressing fears for the future of the United Synagogue Pension Scheme, condemning arbitrary attacks on civilians in Israel and Palestine. In 2005, signing another motion commemorating International Holocaust Day, condemning the desecration of a Jewish cemetery in East London, leading the condemnations of an Iranian magazine soliciting cartoons about the Holocaust, and condemning Brian Ferry for his anti-Semitic remarks, praising British war veterans for their efforts to combat the Holocaust, signing a motion marking the 70th anniversary of Cable Street, where the bloke's flipping mother stood arm in arm with British Jews and the working class of London against actual fascists and Nazi apologists, Oswald Mosley's gang. Co-sponsoring a motion lamenting the poverty and social exclusion East London Jews suffered, praising the efforts of the Jews in the Warsaw Ghetto during the uprising of 1944, signing another motion marking the 70th anniversary of the horrors of the Holocaust in 2008, condemning the Press Complaints Commission for refusing to sanction the Times for anti-Semitism, yes, one of the papers now accusing him of it, condemning a wave of anti-Semitic incidents in 2009, signing John Mann's motion condemning anti-Semitism on university campuses, signing a motion condemning anti-Semitism on the internet, signing a motion praising the heroism of British Jews during the Holocaust, condemning Iran's treatment of Jewish minorities in Iran in 2009, joining in for calls for Facebook to do more to fight anti-Semitism, yes, the site now allowing unchecked claims of Corbyn's racism to run rampant, co-sponsoring a motion calling for Yemen's Jews to be given refugee status to the UK, co-sponsoring a motion praising the Never Again for Anyone initiative, backing Ian Paisley's motion condemning the anti-Semitic remarks of Dior's lead fashion designer, condemning the sale of Nazi memorabilia at an auction in Bristol, co-sponsoring a bill condemning the rise of anti-Semitism in Lithuania, condemning a terrorist attack on a Jewish school in Toulouse, co-sponsoring a motion condemning anti-Semitic attacks during Euro 2012 in Poland, attacking the BBC for cutting Jewish programmes from its schedules, joining a chorus of calls condemning anti-Semitism in sport, and being one of the few MPs who defended Ralph Miliband from Daily Mail anti-Semitism, of course the paper whose previous owners were friends of Hitler. Praising Holocaust Memorial's work on anti-Semitism education, co-planning a counter-fascist demo in defence of Jewish residents at Golders Green, using one of his first PMQs to challenge Cameron to do more on anti-Semitism, visiting terrorism concentration camp to commemorate Holocaust victims, and lastly but not least, introducing 20 new measures to combat anti-Semitism in the party. And again, no other political party has made one change. Labour have 20 just to combat one type of complaint. I still think they're the only political party with an actual procedure to deal with these kind of complaints. And considering statistically they're the least racist party, a bit worrying. He has the support of many Jews, many prominent people in the intellectual community, not just random students with one Jewish parent now claiming to be the new voice of Judaism, or right-wing stooges who support genocide and not criticism, but fully grown, fully fledged people of genuine reputation. Noam Chomsky, Andrew Feinstein, 34 different Orthodox leaders signed a letter of support. Even Robert Cohen, a Jewish writer, has dismantled the claims that there is any danger for people of Jewish faith in the UK should Corbyn win the election. They're unfounded, unsubstantiated, protected by lunacy, and remain to this day entirely unexplained. Citing Guardian articles by the likes of Jonathan Friedland with excerpts like this: I understand that to many all this will sound overwrought. I'm afraid that Jewish history has made us that way, prone to imagining the worst. We look at our usually sparse family trees and we can pick out the pessimists, those who panicked and got out. It was they who left their mark on us. You see, the optimists, those who assumed things would work out for the best, they never made it out in time. According to Cohen, it sounds overwrought because it is overwrought, But worse still, is feeding a moral panic across the nation and stoking fear in Jewish homes without a credible threat being presented. What's worse? These are the words of very credible, very intelligent, and importantly, very Jewish people. And ironically, nearly all of them have spent a chunk of their lives really fighting racism and the powers behind it. It seems the odd, concerned liberal like Friedland has the support of all the racists, the far right, the scared to research, and Israel's apartheid government. So they seem to drown out the typically soft-natured aspects of people who dedicate their lives to helping other people's lives. But we live in an era where the debate winner is the one who spoke over the top of everyone else. And you're seeing the trampling of huge swathes of the Jewish community in the UK, painted as terror-supporting, not the right kind of Jew. They only want Zionists in Zionism, not Jews. He's a lefty anyway. We've even seen Jewish Labour MPs under investigation for anti-Semitism, reported on by non-Jews, of course, but supporters of Israel and not Corbyn, and that's what's really important. If it was the safety of the Jewish community, they'd be investigating the threats to people's safety, not trying to get Jews who support the rights of Palestine out the party. Big shout out to Maureen Lipman, who used the Sun paper to pretend she's leaving Labour because of Corbyn's racism, and decide not to talk about when she actually left a few years ago whilst Jewish man Ed Miliband was leader because of his support for Palestinian rights. She left because a Jew valued other people's rights to self-determination. The irony. She's not a voice for, nor is she even on the side of British Jews. She fucking hates Arabs and other people of brown complexion. These people despise Palestinians. Let's stop beating around the race bush with this. They talk of and they think of them as animals. Why else would mere support of their human rights trigger such a divide in our community? Tell me why anger towards people using innocent families as political bait, families of the same faith that they're using to prop up the far right, is me being racist. The far right is the biggest threat to your average Jew, your average civilian. And me standing against those principles makes me a Jew hater. Tommy Robinson has links to Israel and German Nazi groups. Salvini, a far-right Italian leader, now good friends of the Israeli government. Netanyahu has brought Orban closer, the man who stands accused of being an anti-Semite because of his lying about history and anti-Semitic poster campaigns. He's also quite fond of Jair Bolsonaro, the now infamous leader of the most anti-indigenous Latin American government and willful destroyer of the Amazon. They are glued by their hatred for anyone more tanned than Xavi Alonso, on a mission to destroy that part of human history and distort public discourse to the point that they now control it. Corbyn's not racist. We can do a whole hour on the things that man has done to combat it. And the cheek of little weasels that weren't even born when he was out there getting arrested for their rights and the rights of others, the fucking cheek of you to question it with nothing to back it up or make it even scarcely believable, let alone even be true. The cheek on you. You're not even man enough to talk about the man. And I'll hit you with this, written by Jewish historian Jeffrey Alderman. The context I'd like to place around this excerpt from an article he wrote is that Dame Hodge is one of the biggest pushers of the smear in Westminster, calling him an effing anti-Semite and a racist to his face in public, faking claims that people have fiddled with cases and, to be honest, all sorts. She's a liability holding on to her unfounded credibility in desperation, as a lot of Labour MPs are now. But this is the short anecdote Alderman decided to go with in his Spectator article. In 1987, the West London Synagogue approached Islington Council with a startling proposal to sell its original cemetery to property developers, destroying the gravestones and digging up and reburying the bodies lying under them. This cemetery, dating from 1840, was not merely of great historic and architectural interest in the view of Orthodox Jews. The deliberate destruction of a cemetery is sacrilegious, of course. So when Islington Council granted the planning permission, a Jewish-led and ultimately successful campaign was launched to have the decision reversed. I was part of that campaign, and so was Jeremy Corbyn. Meanwhile, the then leader of Islington Council, whose decision to permit the destruction of the cemetery was eventually overturned, was none other than Dane Hodge. Actions speak louder than words. Which brings me on to some words spoken last night about Corbyn and his racism. The words are from Chief Rabbi Ephraim Mervis, unelected leader of roughly a third of British Jews, calling him unfit for office, writing that a new poison, sanctioned from the very top, has taken root in the Labour Party. What will become of Jews and Judaism in Britain if the Labour Party forms the next government, and that the nation's soul is at stake? ITV articles this morning, written by Weasel Peston, talk of how Labour's administrative machine failed miserably to respond in a timely fashion to a practical challenge that was of a considerably lesser order, namely the multiple disclosures that anti-Semitism was poisoning the party when considering Labour's ability to manage an economy. Let me just ask, when reporters, journalists and news bulletins themselves are required to notify the audience or reader that Labour were the first to adhere to the IHRA definition, the BBC had to admit it got the Wreath Lane story wrong. Labour are still the only party to install a system to deal with racism, doubling the workforce and hiring 6 new staff members. Even though, according to various studies, Labour is the least likely to house racism of any kind amongst its members, including anti-Semitism. Over 50% of Tory voters gave racist answers to polling on race issues, according to a Tory-owned polling company. Boris Johnson allowed anti-Semitic content to be written as the editor of The Spectator, and his party is close with the aforementioned Orban of Hungary. Chief Rabbi Mervis publicly supports Boris, Netanyahu, and publicly came out in support of the shooting and killing of innocent Palestinians in Gaza. Chief Rabbi used to work for Israel. The UK government does the House of Saud's bidding. The House of Saud is possibly the most anti-Semitic institution on the planet. Boris Johnson is also quite clearly racist, whether it's writing about how black boys scare him in response to the murder of Stephen Lawrence, as if to soften the blow, calling gays tank-top bum boys, black people pickaninnies and watermelon smiles, his party having policies targeting the gypsy community. But this doesn't bother Chief Rabbi. There's an investigation going on into the one party with a process, the one party with a member who's literally fought on the street against fascism and anti-Semitism, the one party who adopted the IHRA, the party that again statistically houses less racism and anti-Semitism as society as a whole. Chief Rabbi has only decided to attack that party, who also happens to be the only party who publicly believe in the rights of Palestinians. And when it was a Labour MP gunned down by the far right, when the far right are shooting Jewish women and children in synagogues across America, and famous statues are defaced with Nazi logos and other far right symbolism, when the far right have cozied up to Israel, and the safety and well-being of Jews seems to have been usurped by the well-being of Israel, Christian Zionism and disdain for Muslims, where's the investigation and media furore over real-life far-right terrorism? It's what the studies suggest. It's what the evidence proves. If this was about Judaism and protecting the rights of British Jews, they'd take into consideration all those that support Corbyn and are Jewish themselves. But instead you'll find these are the wrong kind of Jew, because you're not a Zionist. You're merely a pain in the neck for the ulterior motive of Israel's far right. It doesn't matter that it's the far right who genuinely pose a threat to people's safety. Instead, we have this man talking about what's going to happen to the rights of Jews in Britain. Are you joking? You scummy little man, throwing your own community, your own faith under the bus while using it as your shield. I know mainstream reporters might get all truth spinny over these issues through pure fear of knowing what can happen to people with actual anti-racist track records, let alone establishment stooges. But I have no qualms calling it what it is. Bullshit. Show me the racism. Prove he's a danger. There must be some intangible proof or evidence or signs other than trying to stop people killing each other. It's been 4 years and the best you've got is some Labour MPs have left the party. You mean their local members didn't like their lack of support for the leader they voted in, nor did they like it when these same MPs accused these same locals of that racism and thuggery. Luciana Berger was usurped by a Jew. How is that racist against Jews? Luciana Berger, Mrs. I had to come to conference with police escorts when it turns out all the people giving her abuse were charged as neo-Nazis and not affiliated with the Labour Party. These people are part of the Israeli lobby, not the Jewish community. There's a whole load of difference. You can't run with unsubstantiated claims for this long. You can't purposefully ignore any real racism if it comes from the right. You can't continually get caught lying and demand to be accepted as the truth. You can't use a nation's main religion as a shield to deflect from murder and apartheid. Labour has reacted to these claims. It has acted. No one else has. The stats suggest everyone else needs to more urgently than Labour does. Someone going onto the news or writing into the papers and saying that Labour haven't doesn't mean anything. Corbyn isn't anti-Semitic. Labour isn't anti-Semitic. I believe the truth tellers. Stop believing the salesman. Don't believe the media hype. Put your ear to the ground and listen yourself. Like, comment, subscribe. This is YakChat. I've been Yak. I hope you've been yourself. Vote Labour December 12th. That rhymed.